All right, we're doing 15 of method argument in logical reasoning by type 2. So here we go with 15. Laura, Harold is obviously lonely. Oh, poor Harold. He should sell his cabin in the woods and move into town. In town, he will be near other people all the time, so he will not be lonely anymore. Okay. Ralph, many very lonely people live in towns. What is needed to avoid loneliness is not only the proximity of other people, but also genuine interaction with them. Great. So let's figure out what the argument is here. So Laura is saying that Harold should move into town, and because in town he will be other people, he will not be lonely anymore. All right. So basically, if Harold moves to town, he won't be lonely anymore. And Ralph is arguing back and saying many very lonely people live in town. So it's not true that Harold's not necessarily going to stop being lonely. And the reason for that is it's not only the proximity, but also the interaction. So it's not enough for Harold to move into town. He's also got to have good interactions with people. So going into it, we're looking for something maybe that says just because you have one thing doesn't guarantee it if you're missing something else, or maybe only having one component is not enough to give a result, something along those lines. All right, here we go. Ralph responds to Laura by pointing out that something needed for a certain result does not necessarily guarantee that result. Okay, so putting it into our situation, something needed for a certain result, aka Harold not being lonely, or moving into town, so proximity, does not necessarily guarantee that result. Yeah, that's what Ralph is saying. Ralph is saying just because Harold moves into town doesn't mean he will stop being lonely because there's still this whole other component we need. But so A is looking pretty good, but let's look at the rest. B, what is appropriate in one case is not necessarily appropriate in all cases. Again, Ralph isn't saying that. Ralph is saying, well, Ralph isn't saying that just because Harold won't be lonely, no one else will be lonely, or just because other people have moved to town and are happy, that doesn't mean Harold would be happy if he moved into town, or not happy, but less lonely. Ralph's not saying that. Ralph's just saying that Harold's missing an important ingredient in order to not be lonely. So B's not our answer. C, what is logically certain is not always intuitively obvious. Okay, so basically what makes sense in our heads is not always clear to us. That's not what Ralph is doing. Ralph is saying just because he satisfies one condition doesn't mean he's satisfying the other. It's nothing about intuitively obvious or what should happen doesn't make sense to us. That's not what's happening here. D, various alternative solutions are possible for a single problem. No, Ralph's not really giving us any solutions. Ralph is just saying that won't guarantee it because you need two things. So D's not our answer either. A proposed solution for a problem could actually worsen that problem. Ralph isn't saying that Harold moving into town would make him more lonely than before. Because again, like how can we compare how lonely he is in the woods versus how lonely he would be in town? So E is not our answer, meaning A is all we have left, and A accurately describes what Ralph is saying to contend with Laura.